All right, so step one of making our candles is gonna be to cut our PVC into the length that we want. So you can use different lengths, you can use different widths. There are two different types of PVC. So there's the standard PVC that has this thickness. They also make a slightly thinner PVC, which is really nice if you're gonna have the light recess lower inside, because then you'll actually get more of the light showing through the candle itself. But this is just standard PVC for today's example. So I have two different sizes that we've done, cut them. Now we're gonna take our Dremel tool, and we have a multi-purpose carving bit. So it's like a little, looks like almost like a drill bit. You can use also the like rotary sander tool if that's what you have. But we're basically gonna take and carve the edges of it to look like it's been melted like a candle would. Okay, so once we have cut our candle like this, we are going to sand it out with this little sanding wheel that we all know and love. So this you can just use this bit if you want to do the whole thing, but I just felt like cutting away the space took a lot of time with the wheel. So I found that using that was better. So that's all we're gonna do is go through and sand down and soften these edges. I'm gonna go get some glasses, but I'll come back once that step's done. Okay, so you're gonna end up with a softened edge that looks more like this. So if you need inspo pictures, go online, look up some photos of like candles that have pillar candles, melty pillar candles, things like that, so you can get ideas on the shape that you want. I'm not worried about this hole, it just already was in there, but it's gonna get covered by wax, so we're not worried about that. But here we go. Now, you can use different things to remove this, but I just paint over it because I didn't have too much luck removing it the first go around. So, okay, so we're now ready with our candles. They look like this now, we've painted them, there's no writing on them, the edges are kind of smoothed out. Looks like that. So this is my favorite hot glue gun. It is the Gorilla Glue Gun. The reason I like it is because it has a high and low. It's not like I've tried a million hot glue guns. This just happens to be one I got and I really liked. So you'll want to have it set to the high temp for this. And then I have white glue sticks. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start putting drips around our candle. So there's a couple different methods that you can go about doing this, okay? So you can start at the bottom of the drip and work your way up, kind of squeezing as you go, like that. If your hot glue gun is hot enough, you can also take it and just have it on the edge and put it there and let it slowly run down the edge of it. So there's a few different ways you can do it. What I usually suggest doing is taking it and doing like a space and then doing another drip and just continuing to make rounds around the candle. You could also potentially start where you wanna be, start going up, give it a little bit of a pulse there to get more out, and then come back. So I found I don't necessarily love when they're super, like have a lot of texture to them. These give smoother drops where it's less like janky and jaggedy as it goes up. So depending on the look that you're going for, I usually use a combination of all three of these. So we're going to speed this part of the video up so that you don't have to watch me do this whole shebang. So it's up to you to decide how far you want the drips to come down. So this is about, I would say, halfway through. At this point, you don't have very much space in between the drips here, as you can see. So at this point, I start going back through and building up. You do want to make sure that like all the open space on the PVC pipe is filled. So going through and doing that, that may look like lengthening certain areas. Like this kind of looks weird to me right here, so I'll add some more there. One of the things that I kind of like try to keep in mind is anywhere that you have like a lower portion of the candle, like the silhouette on the top, that's going to be where you're going to have lower wax drips and potentially more wax drips that have built up on top of each other. So you don't have to necessarily follow that, but it's an easy way to kind of help you decide what you're going to do. And see, these are like all similar length, so I'll want to add something in here to kind of break that up. So as I do that, I'll probably start lower and then build up into there. And then maybe here where it's the low point, I'm gonna like start here with a drip and then I'm gonna squeeze going up. One thing to keep in mind, and that's gonna like slowly go over itself. One thing to keep in mind is as you're starting to build the glue up, you don't want to like put glue on an area that's not completely cooled, because then it's just going to sort of all marry together and kind of look too flat without very much dimension. So here I can come back and add in a couple drips there, and that's going to go down the edge. We're going to continue this process until it gets the way you want it. Okay, so now I've pretty much got the candle the initial path how I want it to be. There we go. Another cool thing you can do is if you know it's going to be like on a solid surface and people aren't really going to mess with it, you can actually make like a pool that goes all the way to the ground and pools on the side to make it look like it's puddling over there. So at this point we need to go around and finish off the top edge, because as you can see, it kind of looks a little bit janky. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take my hot glue gun and go around the edge, keeping in mind that it needs to like marry together. We don't want to look like it's just got a line of glue all the way around the top edge. So periodically I'm gonna let it pool over on the side and flow down so that it kind of marries it all together. So this is where those low points will tend to pool on you, which is good. Like that's how you want it to look. And it's okay if a little bit flows down on the inside. Depending on what you're gonna do, the inside may or may not matter. Okay, so now that our candle is finished essentially with the wax portion, you're gonna have some like glue strings and things like that that are on here. And if you move on to the next step of the glaze without cleaning those wax strips, it'll be noticeable on there. Not that big of a deal, but you know, it can be frustrating. So you're gonna wanna get a heat gun. This is just a craft heat gun. You can also use a regular, you know, Home Depot heat gun or whatever. So some of the strings you can pull off a little bit, but other times they want to hang out in there or they're short pieces. So we're going to take our heat gun and put it right here on this spot. And see how it just disappears? just be careful as you go around with your heat gun that you're not, that you don't touch it until it cools again, because otherwise you're gonna end up making a mess of your stuff. Also, you don't wanna use the heat gun for too long, because then you're just gonna kind of melt everything and it's going to get rid of some of that definition that you worked hard to get. Also, if you have an area that is a little bit like jaggedy and you want to heat it up a little bit to soften it, you can do that as well. So once it cools, move on to the next step. Okay, so you could keep your candle just like this if you wanted to, but I want to make it kind of dingy, make it look really old. So what you can use for that, you could use a lot of different things. This is just what I found I like. It's the Folk Art Home Decor Antique Wax. So we're gonna use this, and then we're gonna use one of these little chip brushes. So you can get these on Amazon. You can also buy them like in a big box from Harbor Freight, and it's super cheap. So that's a good option if you have one local to you. You need 2 of these, and we're also gonna need some paper towels. So we're kind of going to use this like a wax, like you would, or like a glaze. So we're going to brush it on, and then we're going to take it off and kind of rinse and repeat until we get it to look the way we want to. Okay, so step 1 is going to be getting a little bit of this. I don't like too much because I feel like it just makes you have to do this process a lot more. So we're going to start taking this, and you want to work it into the grooves all around this stuff. So we're gonna go on, and it looks scary at first. Have no fear. We're gonna go around and put this on here. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna take it and we're going to wipe a lot of this off. So it's like, why did we just do that? But you really mainly want it in the grooves. So now you're gonna take chip brush number 2. It's dry. Now we're gonna take this one and we're gonna go back around and kind of pull it back out of the grooves. All right, now it is time to wipe again. So wiping this off, and we're gonna just continue repeating this process, like I said, until you get it the way you want it. Now, as your secondary brush gets dirty, usually then before I go back and do this again, I will just kind of dry it off as best I can on a paper towel. You can also have a third brush that like you use this one initially because there is so much in the grooves, and then you switch over to the third one that has even less on there. Okay, so once I've got it pretty much like I want it to be, I'm gonna then take my brush and just kind of come in here and feather this down just a smidge. You're not gonna have too much coming out of the grooves at that point, but it's just gonna soften some of the harsher lines. Like you can see this line where my paper towel didn't quite get in the grooves. So we're just taking our brush to kind of soften those out a little bit. And I feel like it helps, it kind of dingifies the tops just a little bit more than what was left on by the paper towel, because the paper towel does clean the wax quite well. And it cleans the wax strips quite well, and the wax here does not dry directly on it. So then I'll just kind of go around and kind of blot it a little bit. And voila, use our mostly dry brush in here just to dingify this a little bit. And huzzah! Here's our super pretty candle that looks really old.